I love horns. So I'm a demon
Yeah,
vampire.
there's other stuff with horns, right? Like, you could be a minotaur.
But I want to be a cute girl.
That Drawk show.
Today's Drawk show is going to be a little bit simple because for these first few weeks of streaming, it's going to be mostly a test stream, figuring things out, seeing what works and what doesn't, and maybe getting some good VODs out of it. So if you're on YouTube right now watching this, it worked. And if you're not watching this, you don't exist, and I don't have to worry too much about you. So to give everyone an idea of what we're going to be doing today, I'm going to be switching over to this drawing here. You're going to see I've already done a very gross-looking sketch already. This is just because I'm doing the thumbnailing ahead of time, because it's really inconsistent. Sometimes thumbnailing takes under a minute. Sometimes it takes about half an hour. And that is probably the least interesting part of the entire process, so I just want to skip that for everybody. So for today's first stream, we're going to be talking to Tegan. Tegan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hello. Hi. I'm Tegan. I work for a D&D dice company. So, D&D characters are all I talk about.
Well, that's good news for us, because
the character today is going to be my girl Mirage.
Awesome. So yeah, the basic concept for how a lot of these streams are going to go is I'm going to have a guest on who's going to be talking about a character of theirs. We're going to be drawing it the entire way through. Should take between an hour and a half to 2 hours. Going to try to get it done as close to an hour and a half as possible. And by the end of it, we're going to have something nice to look at. So tell me a bit about the campaign and the story that Mirage is from.
Yeah, so the campaign, actually, it was the first D&D campaign of mine that managed to last longer than 3 sessions, which is a curse that happens way more often than anyone likes to admit.
Oh, yeah. I think, the amount of campaigns everybody's had that have gone any amount of time is got to be, a tenth of what they've played.
Oh, absolutely. There were 3 different groups I went through where we did a session, maybe 2, and then just never again, because trying to schedule 5 or 6 adults for 1 time a week is a lot harder than it sounds.
It's crazy. When I was a teenager doing that sort of thing, I'd be like, it's going to be easy when I'm an adult, though, because then, I'm not going to have school to worry about, and I cannot fathom how wrong I was.
It's the exact opposite. Everyone has jobs. Mm-hmm. Everyone has different job schedules. Everyone has lives. Cool. Great. That's awesome.
So what was the campaign sort of about these characters from?
Yeah, so the campaign was originally... So we went through 2 different DMs. So the story sort of shifted a little bit, and originally it was your classic, D&D campaign, where the premise is factions at war throughout the city, so there were different areas of the realm.
Every new GM or DM needs to immediately go to there's factions. There's factions at war. That's...
Oh, 100%. I need conflict, we're going for this one. So that was the original premise, mm-hmm. And we ended up, just due to some internal issues and stuff, we had to switch to one of our players became the DM instead, and the DM had to bow out.
Gotcha.
And then it got more kind of based around stuff happening with gods not being able to communicate anymore, and there was an issue with their realm, and it started getting really, really interesting. And there were some really cool moments where we had a fight, and at the end of it there was a well in the city that we were in, and we ended up going to the bottom of the well because something we needed dropped down it, and there was a doorway in there leading to very clearly some sort of shadow plane or something. We didn't end up getting in it because the campaign ended before we could figure out how to open the door, but I know.
At a door?
I know.
A door?
Uh-huh.
Oh my god, they say that doors are the bane of D&D players, but apparently the bane of campaigns too.
It's the bane of the campaign. I mean, that was the most tragic thing, is Mirage is my pride and joy character. And we never got to finish that campaign, but we had some really, really cool moments.
You can't take that away from you.
I know, exactly. There was another really cool instance that we had where we were going sailing to reach a different city for I think we were like trying to deliver something, and we ended up getting caught in a storm and arriving at this like really weird, very magically charged island.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and on the island was like a rickety kind of abandoned city, and it was all dark and cloudy and all this. And we came across shadow versions of ourselves.
Oh, that's so cool.
It was super cool that we had to fight. And it's like they were shadow versions, but it was very clear that they were like ghosts. So at one point, it was Mirage. One of them that was in the appearance of a different party member, like kept trying to like reach out to her, and when it did, I mean, it was very clearly trying to possess her, but it would like talk to her and basically be like, "I need your help." And it was this like whole big thing where she was like, "But like, what if it possesses me and it needs help, you know, and it's trying to do this to let us know what it needs help with."
So,
The party didn't like that idea.
Mirage, you mentioned, is a changeling who mostly spends her time looking as a tiefling. That's what you've said before the stream.
Yes.
What's the mirror version of that look like? Like, what's the shadow alternative of your character?
The so in the place that we were in, the shadow alternatives were very it was like the whole place had the color drained out of it and like the life drained out of it. So the shadow versions that we came across were very sullen, which for like Mirage, Jinx, which is her changeling name, is a very different personality type, because her as Mirage is super like bubbly and sarcastic and playful, and just a general gremlin. So coming to this place where all the members of the party were like total opposites was really freaky and really cool.
Yeah, no, I bet. That sounds really awesome. So, she's a changeling, spends most of her time as a tiefling, and it sounds like the tiefling name is Mirage, which kind of fits the vibe of the tiefling naming conventions, right?
Oh yeah. It was also one of those names where session 1 people were like, that's suspicious. And I was like, what do you mean suspicious? It's just a name.
You basically named yourself Alias, but a little bit more poetic.
Exactly. Like, my name is Disguise.
It's one of those things that feels really clever, like, oh, this is such a meaningful, clever name, and then you're with other players who immediately start looking into it, and you're like,
You're like, shit. Right. I tend to do that a lot. Like, names for me, for characters, always, unless it's like a human character, because then I'm just like, I'll go on babynames.com to find a name. Susan, yeah. I will generally try to find some sort of connecting meaning in the names, which is why I really, really like tieflings a lot. So Mirage being basically disguise. I have another character in my current campaign that I'm playing called Nia, which is short for insomnia, because she's a dream eater.
And do you play a lot of tieflings?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So it almost sounds like this character is you're going, I'm not just playing tieflings. Look, this is a changeling.
It's a changeling now too, but her base form and the one that you see all the time is a tiefling.
Hardly counts.
I think, okay, so I think all of my D&D characters have been tieflings, except for Keone, who's my Curse of Strahd cleric, who's a human.
And that's
it.
What
I have like
class is
5 D&D characters. She's a cleric.
So you have one
the one
cleric
human
and
is
the
a
rest
cleric.
are demons.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of fun to that.
Exactly, yeah. Well, the god character should be a human, you know.
Oh, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what other kind of adventures, moments, what stands out to you when you think of your character?
So this was not necessarily a Mirage moment, but one of the standout moments of our campaign that I love to think about, because it was the first time the group really came together and worked as a group.
I love
those
moments,
yeah, like those classic, you start as a group that's thrown together haphazardly, and a lot of people don't really trust each other. But it was, I think it was around the time that we had that ship island nonsense. But it was like we were sailing somewhere.
The newer versions.
Yeah. The newer, all of our exciting stuff happened with our newer DM and newer campaign.
Oh, okay.
But we had a moment where we were on a ship and we got attacked by people that were looking for us. Because we'd kind of done a couple of illegal things in the process of being heroes. Just a couple crimes. Just a couple crimes.
Yeah. A couple crimes.
You know, not the end of the world. So we were getting attacked, and we ended up as a group, like, getting off our boat and, like, water walking, invisibility, sneaking our way, climbing up the side of the enemy boat, and then having, like, a really big, like, ship battle. And it just, like, the music that our DM had playing in the background and everything, it felt so much like a Pirates of the Caribbean scene.
Oh, I love
like
that.
A big ship battle and, like, all this stuff, and, like, people were getting downed and other people were, like, avenging them and then bringing them back up, and it was really cool.
Can I just say, as someone who tried to run a pirate game before Assassin's Creed Black Flag came out, how grateful I am to Assassin's Creed Black Flag and especially Sea of Thieves for adding more soundtrack to, like, the pirate genre of music. Because before then, it was just 100%. Pirates of the Caribbean. If you wanted to run a pirate game and you're the type of GM who has pirate music or has background music, Pirates of the Caribbean is, like, the only choice you had.
It was the only option.
Nothing else is out there.
You can be these 3 soundtracks and that's it.
Yeah. Now there's 3. 3 is so much better than 1.
That's true.
Especially because Sea of Thieves is just full of music. So.
Sea of Thieves has so much, and that's, like, good music too.
Yeah, one of the best things about the game. So you had this character. You were originally in a game with another GM or DM. You moved to a different one. That's where most of the adventures happen. How did it start?
Yeah.
Like, what brought you to the moment of so it was them being unavailable that switched. How did the first GM start? Like, I'm going to keep using that term. I play so many games that use game.
That use GM instead of a DM. That is totally fine. Well, it was actually, thankfully, it wasn't too difficult because we kept all the same players. It was just the DM left, and one of our players opted into becoming DM, GM, which, you know, we did have, like, a couple weeks where it was like, okay, we can't play because, you know, it's their first time DMing this campaign, so we're going to give them a couple weeks to, like, think over it. But I believe at the time that our DM left, like, we had been on the road to another city, so it was nice for the DM to just kind of introduce, like, oh, you're traveling, all this kind of stuff. Like, you run into, I think we got attacked by, you know, your classic, like, oh, it's bandits on the road, and it was just, like, a nice, smooth transition for our DM to go into it. But there was a really, really funny, stupid moment in that first session with the new DM. And it was totally, like, my fault and a couple of the other players. But we, after a fight, we were tracking people that had gotten away. And they were on horseback. So we were, like, following these tracks. And we'd been following them for a while, so it wasn't really, like, a chase anymore. And so we saw, like, horse tracks that were, like, standard horse distance away from each other. And the DM worded it as, like, you see the distance between the steps get longer. In such an ominous voice. And at the time, our group we'd split on other side of a field, and it was Mirage was using message to try to communicate. And I was like, guys, the tracks are getting longer. And they were like, what do you mean longer? And I'm like, well, I think its legs are growing longer.
So what's this? Is this werehorses? So
that was my thought, because the DM said it so ominously, like, as you're following the tracks, the distance between them gets longer. And I was
Oh my
like,
god, were they just running?
huh? They were just running. They
Oh
were
my
just
god.
galloping. They just went from, like, a walk into a gallop, and the DM was like, oh my god, guys.
Oh my god. Hey.
Do a survival check. And it was
Oh
like, okay.
no.
And it was like, they're running. It was like, oh. But there was a good, like, 5 or 10 minutes where we were like, these are monster horses.
That, ladies and gentlemen, is why you need survival to accurately get information from tracking instead of perception. Because anyone can notice that the steps, the distance between the steps gets longer. But it takes survival to be like, no, that's just what happens when horse run.
When horse run, distance between step long.
Yeah.
Not fucking spider horse all of a sudden. Yeah, I panicked, and then it made the group panic, and the DM was like, dear God.
What have I done? What have I done?
What have I done? What have I started?
You don't realize when you're first starting to run games how much every little innocuous thing you say could accidentally spiral into someone's mind. That's where the door problem comes from. Is like, we're so used to, like, people are so used to being told, well, you go to, I want to go to blank, and they're just there, that whenever you say there's a door in front of you, the players immediately go into problem-solving mode. And because you,
what's the puzzle to open this door?
Puzzle to open the door, because you haven't just gone, you're in the room. It makes it a pain if you want to describe a door as anything, like, special. Like, if a door is at all decorative, that's my tip, is describe something else, pick something else to be decorative, don't make the door important.
Don't make the door. Well, one of my favorite ones that I ever heard of was, it was like a Tumblr post or something from years ago, someone talking about a door puzzle that they'd implemented into their campaign. And it was like the players walk into a room, and there's a door on the opposite side, and there's like a dial in the middle of the room on a table. And it's got all these different symbols, and like you could press the symbols. And what it was as soon as they entered the room, there was essentially a counter on top of the door that would tick down. And pressing certain buttons would extend the timer. And it was as the timer ticked down, like the room would grow dark, and all this kind of stuff. So the players were frantically like, oh, we gotta, like, press this button to extend the timer, we gotta figure out how to open this door, blah, 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 blah. And the person writing it was like, yeah, they spent like an hour on this puzzle. And the way to beat the puzzle is you just let the timer go down, and the door unlocks.
I was hoping that'd be the answer. Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's great. See, that's the thing that people got to think about in D&D is when you're making your dungeon, someone lives there or, like, at least wants access to the treasure within it, or they wouldn't have made an answer to the puzzles. So it needs to be something that, like, that's the best option, is something that's, like, simple if you know what you're doing, but to anyone else is gonna fuck them up. Like,
oh yeah,
God,
100%.
If you were a wizard, you could design a dungeon where it's just like, all right, here's the room. The answer is do nothing. But there's a bunch of symbols on this weird dial with a ball game system. And whenever you do anything involving it, things try to kill you. Monsters come out, there's traps, whatever. It's entirely pointless. The door is unlocked.
Yep. It was, like, you could have just tried to open it. Everyone just assumes doors are locked.
You can't describe a door.
Can't just describe it as unlocked. Everyone's like, I'm gonna start picking it. That actually happened at one point. It was someone was like, I'm gonna pick the story. The other person was like, what if we just... And they turned the knob and the door was open, and the other person was like, well...
Adventurers are so used to doors being a problem that they just can't accept it.
I know. It's nuts.
Oh man, that's great though.
Yeah, I need to remember, because I've got my notebook in front of me, because this campaign was from 2019, so my memory is a little, like, buh.
The last year an in-person campaign was easy.
Exactly. Can't imagine why the campaign stopped.
Yeah, it's weird to think about, that it just up and stopped, huh?
Yeah, it sucks. But there was one part where we got recruited by, it was like an elven researcher, to go to, they basically teleported us outside this big white tree. And the catch was, if you got too close to the tree, it would immediately put you to sleep.
Okay.
And it was also a really creative way for our DM, whose character was a drow, who can't sleep, to not have to play their character while doing the dungeon for us. It was like, oh, the only person that can't go in is my character. Ooh. And the elf researcher you came with. What a coincidence. But it was like, it would put you to sleep and you'd be passed out. But your consciousness would get essentially transported to like this maze, which seemed like it was within the tree. And it was this big like puzzle, like this is where the campaign got cool and it was all like magic based stuff. But there was a really cool fight we had at the end of it where we got to the main like galley room, I guess. And there was this big wolf creature, like big white wolf. And we had to fight it because we couldn't leave without. It was basically guarding the galley and like wouldn't let us leave. But what we didn't know was back in like the real world, that one character that was left on his own was fighting like an alternate version of that wolf that looked almost like eldritch.
I was just about to ask what they were up to while you guys were all inside the dream world.
Yeah, yeah.
Wait, so it looked creepier in the real world than in the dream?
Yep.
That's
Which
unexpected.
It was really cool. And we ended up fighting that wolf. We killed ours because it's easier to fight a wolf when you've got 4 people than when you're 1 person. And we come back out and like our frickin' it was like our was he a paladin? I think he was a paladin. Like bloody and beat up. I was like, oh, nice of you guys to show up. And we're like, oh fuck. Which was super cool. And again, another frickin' it was the one thing that was unfortunate is we had so many threads that were like stuff we were researching into that we never got answers for.
Is there any talk about bringing this back, like getting on Roll20?
No. There's been like people are just like way too busy nowadays.
No.
I know it
That's
sucks
so
because
painful.
it was such a cool like storyline and the characters were really great.
Have you had any thought about, like, in a couple years, if another 5e campaign starts up, if you're gonna use this character again, if you're planning on bringing Mirage/Jinx back?
I've considered it. I mean, there's like a lot of her story from this campaign that I really do adore, and it would suck to like rewrite it, but in my head if I played her in a different campaign it would be like a different an alternate universe version of her, because she had like a partner in that world, like one of the characters that she got super close with.
Oh, was that an NPC or a player character?
It was a player character.
Oh, okay. That doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
No. It was our blood hunter in our campaign, which they ended up being one of my favorite tropes, which is like the gruff, grumpy, stoic, and then the literal ray of sunshine character.
Great.
That just like teases them and plays with them and like, you know, brings out their like fun. Yeah, which was super sweet.
Was this Blood Hunter when it was in playtesting and you basically were going to kill yourself, or after it had done playtesting? And okay,
no, it
so
was
it wasn't the improved
testing.
one that was good.
No.
I was playing a Blood Hunter right as the errata, or not the errata, because it finished, right as it finished playtesting and they released it. And I bought it immediately and was like, oh my god, I'm not going to kill myself anymore.
Oh my god, I'm alive. Well, it ended up so because of the nature of the campaign that we had, like everybody was a little like kind of had rough backstories and stuff like that. So the Blood Hunter was super like for him. Any pain that he like had to inflict to use his abilities, he was like, I deserve this. It was super like very like Witcher-esque kind of Geralt. Like
you gotta love a Geralt.
You gotta. I mean, the guy that plays the character is super into comics and games and things like that. So there was like inspiration here and there. But character's name was Dowd. He was super, super fun. Super like, well, I can't get close to people. I don't want to lose people I care about. But he was such like the group's rock almost.
And
You know?
so his name. So he was he a pretty good role player? That player?
Oh yeah, he
Got really into
actually.
character.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he actually is now my current DM for the campaign that's going on right now. So
Oh,
a couple of the members of my previous group have continued, and then like the DM that was from that group and some like two of the players from that group no longer play. So that like the campaign Mirage is from stopped, but he moved on with us, and then one other player from that campaign, and then we picked up a couple friends along the way for like our current campaigns. But he actually is a writer.
okay.
Yeah, so he went to school, has like uh, like lit degree. So and he writes comics as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's got some real cool work.
That's super cool. I definitely preps him for running that sort of game, and that's Strahd is the current one.
Yeah, so we've got Strahd going, and then we have another game, which we're planning on recording and like releasing the recorded sessions of. And that one is a fully homebrewed campaign. And we call that our villains campaign or degenerates campaign, where
Okay.
the premise is uh my buddy was super inspired by the premise of like the Suicide Squad, like a bunch of just absolute asshole villains, terrible people forced to work together.
I
And it's
do.
so much fun.
I do love the real like Suicide Squad premise. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
so um
So,
that's been a lot of fun.
not to backtrack too hard, just for the sake of a bad joke, but if you're saying he's a pretty good role player and the character is named Dowd, are you saying he was pretty well endowed?
Stop. No. Ask his girlfriend. Fuck off. Well endowed. All right, it's
Come on,
over.
that was
I'm out of
great.
here.
That was
Thanks for
great.
having me. Goodbye. No.
So we've talked a little bit about the class of her compatriots now. What class specifically was Mirage slash Jinx?
So she was a sorcerer, but she was a shadow magic sorcerer.
Oh, I've played one of those. They are fun.
They're super
You
fun
gotta
and
love
funny.
a hellhound that imposes disadvantage.
It's so great. And we actually ended up our campaign we called it the Hounds because there was a lot of wolf imagery with different characters, and then of course the shadow sorcerer
Mm-hmm.
ability is Hound of Ill Omen.
Yep.
So our campaign was called the Hounds of Ill Omen
Oh, that's
because it
good.
ended up working out. Yeah. Yeah, I love that little dog. My friend, I'll have to send you, a friend of mine drew Mirage with her shadow hound. But at the time, so this was 2019, so it was before I got Ghost, which for anyone listening, I have a Samoyed,
Big
which
fluffy white dog.
big fluffy white dog, which you also have one.
I do.
But my friend drew Mirage and then a shadow wolf, but it was like a big fluffy black Samoyed
Aww.
because she knew it was my favorite kind of dog.
Oh, that's
Super cute.
great.
Super cute.
When I played a Shadow Sorcerer, I really wanted to emphasize that the Shadow was a curse for her. Her
Ooh.
origin was that she got her powers from a failed attempt to sacrifice her in a ritual.
Oh fuck, that's
Basically,
cool.
cultists did a bad job, and because a lot of the stuff in the Shadow Sorcerer talks about how like their senses are dulled, they are less alive than other people. So I thought that
Yeah,
was kind of I wanted to go real edgy with it. So
that is super cool.
so I wanted to make the Shadow Sorcerer Hound of Ill Omen as awful as possible. So it was just like a little terrible looking, sick looking Yorkie
Oh,
named Tar. And the idea with it is I took the feat to Magic Initiate to get access to a couple wizard spells, and I got find familiars that I could have Tar most of the time be a horrible little Yorkie who turns into a horrible major looking coyote.
I love that. That's really cool. It
So
goes
yeah,
from a
Shadow
Yorkie
Sorcerer.
to blue.
That's gonna definitely inform the colors we go with for the magic at the end.
A Yeah, I mean the way that I took Shadow Sorcerer. So the reason I took Shadow Sorcerer was actually because I was trying to be sneaky
Oh, okay.
in that tieflings have night vision.
Oh, okay.
Changelings, for whatever reason, do not.
Oh, and Shadow
And
Sorcerer gives you the dark vision
Shadow
ability.
Sorcerer gives you dark vision. So it
Oh.
was, the only other difference was I didn't have flame resistance like tieflings normally
Yeah.
have, which I got away with. Nobody really
Nobody
notices because
notices that you're taking
nobody's
fire
looking at your
damage.
HP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to say how much you're taking. You just get hit.
I just get hit. I just reduce my health and then I'm like, "Ooh, I'm hurting." Um but yeah, so I took Shadow Sorcerer because I wanted a sorcerer because I tend to gravitate towards mage classes, which is hilarious because then all I do is complain that every ability is concentration and I can only do one thing in a turn.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Well, if you're ever looking for a fix to that problem, I am going to. Hey, everybody, if you're watching, a lot of these conversations where people talk about a 5e character, and it's going to be most, because that's what most people play. At some point, they're going to have a complaint about 5e, and I'm going to pitch Pathfinder 2. I just want everybody to know that. It's going to happen a lot. I can't help it. It fixes the problems you have. It does.
I honestly, yeah. Being able to do more than one thing in a turn as a spellcaster would be amazing. Especially because in a lot of campaigns that I play, I will play a healer. Because a lot of my friends prefer straight up DPS classes, which is
Oh,
fine.
okay.
But I find I spend many battles just slapping healing on people.
It's difficult. It's a thing. I mean, God, I'm gonna do it. I have to say.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah,
It's
so
your show.
Pathfinder 2, thing that is really cool that they've done is that the healing is a lot more powerful than it is in other games. So even if you're a focused healer, you're usually only spending about half your turns on it. And then it's also they've got basically a Eurogame style action economy where instead of types of actions, you just have 3 actions per turns and you kind of spend them a la carte. And the result of that is most healing spells are 2 actions, which means you can cast a spell and heal still. But if you're near someone and you're a cleric who uses a weapon, you could also heal someone and then whack. You could heal someone and hide. It just lets you mix it up a bit more, which is something that I like.
That is actually really cool.
I'm also just going to take a second to say, everybody, audio will be slightly better in the future because what's happening right now is my stylus is broken and can't hold a charge anymore, so it needs to be plugged in at all times. So it's constantly bumping the cord of my headphones, which is what a lot of people are hearing. You might think, shouldn't a good artist have a backup stylus? And you're right, you should. However, I unpackaged my backup stylus yesterday, and it doesn't work. It senses it as touching the screen when it's within a centimeter of the screen, and it immediately detects 100% pressure, so it's completely useless.
Oh no!
So I'm buying another stylus to fix this problem.
I've had that happen. That's the worst. Oh, drawing with no sensitivity is a nightmare.
Not even. I would rather just have this plugged in at all times.
Yeah. You're like, I'd rather just draw on paper.
Honestly.
Jeez Louise.
So Shadow Sorcerer.
Shadow
I think it's
Sorcerer.
A really clever option for bypassing the dark vision because I think that is the type of thing that people are going to notice. It's
yeah,
a really well thought out idea.
I put a lot of thought and effort into this character, and it was heartbreaking because I think it was by session 6 that our DM that we started with it basically forced me to out my character as a changeling.
You don't.
Yeah.
You don't force people to out themselves ever.
No. It sucked because that was her whole thing because our DM was like, oh, come up with a secret for your character, and I was like, okay. This is her whole thing. Is she's a changeling. And it was like session 6. Then? Her full backstory was that when she was young, her family was all changelings, and they lived in a human village.
Oh, okay.
And because changelings are super not common, and the village was mostly human, the parents basically got them to put on human personas, and they were homeschooled by, so it was Jinx, which is Mirage's changeling name, and their sibling Nil. And Jinx in changeling form either goes by she, her, or they, them, because changeling, very fluid.
It's kind of comes with, like, when you literally don't have a physiological sex, the idea of not being willing to use they, them, like, you've got to have a strong gender identity.
Exactly. Yeah. Which, I mean, part of the reasons why, like, our first DM, yes, schedules, but we kind of also had to ask them to leave, because they were a little problematic.
Oh,
I mean, this is the person, like, not even going into the deep of it, but when I was talking about how Jinx uses they, them, he tried to fight me on that and be like, changelings aren't gender fluid. And I'm like, you're
hey, bud?
wrong.
Hey, bud?
You're so wrong.
So changelings were first introduced in Eberron. That's a fucking cool story. It's actually great.
They were introduced as being gender fluid.
Yes,
yeah.
They were introduced, and, like, there was the three types. The ones who, I think, passers, who their goal is to pass in society as not a changeling and hide.
Mirage, basically.
Who live a variety of lives and change their existence and basically try to find the real them. Or not, sorry, they're not the ones who try to find the real one. The becomers are the ones who try a bunch of different shit, try living in all different ways. And they're explicitly said, like, they will switch sex on a dime because it doesn't usually matter to a becomer. It's inherent that they want to be different things. And then the last one's the seeker, who wants to find the true them through shape-shifting, slowly tweaking a form. And that's a book from, like, I think the early 2000s that it basically explicitly says, hey, these guys don't have a gender if they don't want it sometimes.
Exactly. So that was a big issue we had with our first DM. And that was not, like, that's just touching the So our first DM was pretty problematic, not great. We didn't want to play with him anymore.
Understandable.
Yeah, so back to, Mirage, Jinx's backstory.
Yeah, let's go back to the good stuff.
Yeah, so Jinx and their sibling Nil were homeschooled by their mother, quote unquote, which, because of the fact that they were in a human village, the parents took on the traditional, like, mother-father role for their human forms, so that's just what they refer to them as. So the mom homeschooled them because she was basically like, well, I don't want there to be any mix-ups at school because you guys are still kids. And the father basically used different personas and forms to work multiple jobs.
Oh, I like that idea. That's very cute. Sad for him.
Yeah,
very cute.
sad for him. Yeah. And essentially, it reached a point where I believe, how did I write it? I think Jinx was like 10 at the time. But their village was ransacked by, like, slavers, because that was our first DM decided that was going to be a big part of the lore, which a lot of us in hindsight were like, probably not great.
There's a way to tackle slavery as the villain in a campaign, I think, and I don't know from what I've heard about this person if I trust them to do that.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully, like, that was from the beginning. It was very much like, this is bad. These are the bad people.
Yeah.
You're fighting them, which was nice.
There is still the risk of doing it the wrong way, even if the slavers are the bad guys.
Now that you mention that,
okay,
thinking back on it, so our DM tried to do the whole, like, one of the first NPCs that was helping us was going to be the big bad.
Classic, yep.
Classic. So he was, like, supposed to be... But he, like, as an NPC, he was really creepy, so nobody trusted him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. His whole thing was he was supposed to be trusted by the group. And then he was just...
Don't make him creepy right away, though, then.
Maybe don't make him super creepy. This is the one that had, like, true sight and could tell that Mirage was a changeling. So she was like, I super don't trust you.
Did they just say it, or did they hint really hard, by the way?
They hinted really, really hard.
How
to
hard?
The point that he would, like, very blatantly be like, I see what you are. Like, in front of the whole group.
Cool.
And the group is like, well, we already don't trust this bitch named Disguise. So...
This girl who named herself Spirit of Halloween Mask.
Literally. Ghost face mask in the corner holding a knife. Yeah, that's my name. Don't wear it out. But, so, now that you mentioned the whole probably not handling it correctly, I was thinking back to the reason that that NPC was gonna become the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Which the DM was not good at keeping secrets, so we knew that he was gonna be the bad guy, like, 7
Oh, no.
sessions in.
Longer than I expected him to make it.
Same. Well, part of the reason why Mirage got outed was because he told her what he was planning, and she was
Oh.
like, maybe don't do that.
Hey, could you not?
Could you not? So, because she kept, like, meeting him in secret, even though the group didn't like that, because she was like, I can tell you're troubled, I want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's like, well, don't let them know that I'm here talking to you. And he, like, revealed this whole big, like, his family had been, like, ransacked by slavers or whatever, and he was gonna try to, like, start a war.
Okay.
And essentially he was gonna, like, get tons of people killed and commit, like, mass genocide because he was, like, upset. Like, so it basically takes the victim to become, like, the mass murderer bad guy.
Yeah, it's hard to do right. It's
hard, and he did it so wrong. And you want to know the stupidest part? Is she talks to him, she's like, maybe don't do that. And he wakes up the next morning, and he tells the, like, person that we'd been hired by, he's like, you know what? I'm turning myself in. Why? Because Mirage talked to me. And so the group knew that Mirage had gone to talk to him. And so the group was super upset at her.
I feel like...
And we're like, basically threatening to, like, get rid of her or whatever. And she was like, no, I need to, like, this is why. And was like, this is why I kept seeing him, because he could see that this is, like, my real form, and blah, blah, blah. And we had so much in common. So that was, like, 6 sessions into the campaign. It was a train wreck.
You know? Not ideal.
Not ideal. But anyways, we ended up retconning a lot of that when we switched to our, like, because there were several people that had parts of their character's backstory that got kind of forcibly revealed because of the way this guy ran things.
I've never heard of a retcon in a game before, and I'm only now thinking about how many times that could have been useful in my past.
Yeah, it was really not, but it sucks because then everybody knows about it. Yeah. Like, it's no longer exciting when you're able to finally reveal it, because you're like, well, everyone knows.
Yeah.
You know, they're just waiting for, like, when is... Yeah, you can, and it was nice because it ended up becoming that I could tell this story that because of her past, basically, like, her family was taken by slavers, she was put into slavery. It's super convenient to have a changeling because they can make themselves stronger and taller and whatever, and do whatever you need them to do around the house. And she became very, like, averse to changing because of it.
Okay.
Which was also my way of, I know that changelings are super overpowered from, like, an RP perspective.
Yeah.
Because if you need to go do something, just turn into somebody
that
has the power to do the thing you need to do.
I want to quickly bring that up, because I think that's the thing I most, like, struggle with the D&D 5e changeling, because I love changelings conceptually. In D&D 3.5, when they wanted to make changelings, they were like, how do we put something this busted in our game? And the answer was that in 3.5, basically, like, the stats were a lot more punishing. Like, orcs got a +2 to strength, but -2 to every intellectual stat.
Holy shit.
Yep. Dwarves weren't in that rough of a state because they only lost 2 charisma and gained 2 con. Elves lost 2 con, gained 2 dex. So most of them were, like, pretty good. Like, because you can build around your weaknesses, lean into your strengths, and then they got a bunch of other shit, like, proficiency with dwarvish weapons, proficiency with elvish weapons, stuff like that. So they were all, like, fairly good. Humans were generally considered the best. They didn't get much. They just got an extra feat, and I can't remember if they got an extra skill, but it was still enough that it was pretty solid. And then changelings, they were like, well, how do we balance out the fact that they can do this crazy thing with shapeshifting? Nothing else. They get no special abilities otherwise. They don't get sleep immunity like an elf. They don't get an extra feat like a human. They get absolutely nothing.
Oh man, they gave changelings in D&D way too much.
They gave them charisma, didn't they, in 5e?
They gave them charisma, but so at the time that I chose Changeling, it was actually still in Unearthed Arcana, like it wasn't
It
fully
hadn't
released
been
yet.
released yet.
It hadn't been released yet, so it was actually even worse. By worse, I mean they were really powerful. You were immediately given, what is it called when you're, like, more than proficient, you're, like, super good at one
Expertise?
particular skill? It gave you expertise in a skill. So I gave myself expertise in, I believe, lockpicking or something? No. Stealing? I don't know. I don't remember. I gave myself expertise in something that was super convenient to just being
Level
an
1
asshole.
expertise and a boost to the most powerful stat in 5th edition.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
D&D 3.5 game makers
And then
out
you
there,
can
like,
become
nothing.
anything. Yeah, you can become anything you've seen in the past within the same size
Oh my god.
in
So
an action.
much.
Yeah,
so much.
which is why, like, I really wanted to be a changeling, but I knew that I didn't want to abuse it and it ended up happening, which is why I didn't want her revealed as a changeling too soon.
Because you
But
didn't
as
want
soon
people
as you
to ask you to
know,
solve every problem.
exactly, because I don't like essentially like easy D&D. Like I don't like when every problem is solved with just, well, this person can do this one spell.
Yeah. You know, if you want a system where spells are built so they can't solve every problem.
Pathfinder 2.
Yeah. They looked at what Polymorph had done to 5e and they broke Polymorph into like 30 different spells. Not actually, like 5 different spells, but each of them can be heightened to different levels. But
probably necessary. Polymorph's pretty fucking
absolutely,
strong.
because how many times have you been playing 5e and there's a problem and the solution is Polymorph? It's
100%.
It fixes every problem.
If you're, I'm telling you, a changeling level, we were probably only level 4 at the time that she was like revealed as a changeling. Anytime there's an issue, they're like, why don't you just turn yourself into that guard or turn yourself into this person? Or like at one point we had to converse with drow and they were like, just make yourself look like a drow. Because the drow that we had in our party was super uncharismatic. Like,
could not
so they were like, we need somebody else.
If only there was someone who had Mask of Many Faces built in and also had a charisma boost.
Literally, that's exactly what it was. Which to me,
it feels less like a character you wanted to play, though.
Exactly. It's why I built her as she was uncomfortable, essentially being herself. And it like also created a couple really cool dimensions of, because of her past, she was uncomfortable being herself. But, you know, through Dowd, who she got really close to, she could eventually reveal, like, this is who I really am. And he was like, you are who you want to be, and I like love you either way. And it was eventually she was able to accept, like, oh, I do actually like not having to put on a face, you know?
Okay, so the passers in the original book were kind of written like 2 different ways, where it was that this was a thing they did because they want to blend in, or this is a thing they do because like their disguised self is who they want to be. For her, it sounds like it was more the former, where it was like she does see her changeling self as her true self. She just dislikes her true self.
Pretty much, yeah, is exactly what it was. And she disliked how her true self... I mean, it took a lot of discovery for her, because initially it was she didn't like her true, you know, she felt like Mirage is who I am, and it was through being basically told, like, you can be this and we're not gonna abuse that she was like, oh.
Aww.
Yeah. Because her whole thing was, like, after she escaped, she sought help from, like, a really bad gang in one area, and they were like, well, we'll give you protection if you do what we say, which was essentially, we want power, so we're going to use the fact that you can look like anyone you want to look like to get more power. So her ability to change, which at the time that I created her, the story written for Changelings in 5e was essentially that they used changing forms as a way to express emotion, so they might have different forms based on like how they're feeling. So to me, that was like the norm for her. So to be told just become someone because we want you to pretend to be them so that we can gain more power was really like disorienting for her and tough.
That just made me think that changelings can live the Miyazaki hair dream of your hair moving to reflect your emotions.
Yeah. Literally. Very, very anime. Um, so yeah, her whole story based around the fact that I didn't want to have a changeling that would break the game by
Yeah,
being like,
you
I'm a
didn't want to
changeling,
abuse your
I can be
power.
whoever. Yeah, I created a changeling that really struggled with their own self-identity. And it's why Mirage as a character is so out there and confident and like, because it's the complete opposite of who Jinx is as a person. Jinx is super reserved, super shy, super quiet.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it also opened up a great avenue for role play and storytelling with the character. One that I will
Yeah.
remind everyone out there trying to be anti woke in that moment actually cut off a little bit of access to that character arc.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's super super cool. I like that idea, and I like trying to play a changeling without you taking advantage of how absolutely busted the 5e changeling is.
Yeah. Yeah. So I used the fact, and I tend to do this a lot because a lot of the games that me and my friends play are more character, story, and role play based
Mm-hmm.
than strictly like we're gonna have the toughest. Like we do have difficult fights, and it's a
Yeah,
good balance of
but
both.
your
But we're
focus is on
all,
storytelling.
yeah, like pretty much everyone that plays in my current campaign is some sort of creative, whether that's an artist, a
Mm-hmm.
writer, this, that, the other. Um,
I
and so we all really like character development, so
mm-hmm.
that's most important to us. So a lot of stuff that I take on my characters is because I'm like, this would be really good for role play.
Yeah, I think here's my hot take. I think D&D people who play it as a war game are making a mistake, not because storytelling is superior to war games, but because D&D is a shit war game. It's
It's
unbalanced.
yeah.
It's weird. A lot of the rules are made for speed over complexity and tactics. There, no thought has gone in. Like, obviously, some thought, but like balance was not a primary thought. Flavor and abilities was a
No,
primary thought. Like
no.
D&D, if it's a role playing game that's built on storytelling, where there's the ability to become a war game, so that there's stakes when there's combat and conflict, is perfect. I think the combat is good enough that like it's fun, it's engaging, and it can feel threatening. But like if play Warhammer, if you just want to fight, play Warhammer. It's a good tactics war game.
Exactly, exactly. Which is so funny to me because I see people talk about like the Adventurers League and how so many people are like, we just want to have like compelling fights and difficult, but and it's like everything's so like that's why the big joke is people who min-max their D&D characters because you can have a barbarian that does like 90 damage in a turn.
Yep.
And then you're like me in the corner as a healer being like, "Bop, cure wounds for 10 HP.
Yep.
Hee. I'm helping." And that's my whole turn. Which funny enough I saw reflected in I don't know if you ever played the Divinity games.
I I so briefly tried because I know I'll like them if I can get into them, but I
Mhm.
couldn't figure out where to go in the first town where I walked in, and they're like, "Ah, we're dealing with zombies," and I immediately was just like,
I'm over it.
okay. And I tried to leave and got killed by a zombie. It was just like, oh, I guess I left too early, but I didn't see what I was supposed to do in town. I,
Yeah.
it's a shame because CRPGs are such a cool genre. I really should go back.
I mean, if it's any consolation, so I played I think it was Divinity Original Sin like 2
Hmm.
with a couple friends of mine because we were like, "Oh, it's D&D as a game."
Yeah.
Um it's as broken as D&D as a game
Oh.
in that one of my friends their turn would be spent doing like a million things and doing a million damage because they were like a fighter.
Yeah.
And anyone playing any sort of mage class was like, "I'm going to use magic missile. That's my turn." And that's all you could do. However, not sponsored. A game I would recommend more, like I liked it way more than Divinity. Baldur's Gate 3. It's technically
Okay.
not fully released yet. There's been an alpha for like 4 years.
Yeah, I'm aware of how much love there is for Baldur's Gate. I've never gotten into it, but they
Yeah.
did have someone turning into a mind flayer in the trailer, and God, I love mind flayers.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you care? It's not really
No,
spoilers,
no,
it's
hit
the
me up.
premise of the game. The premise of Baldur's Gate 3 is that you start the game having been captured by mind flayers, like you're in a mind flayer ship.
Oh, that's
And the
great.
premise
Ooh,
is
one
that
of their
they
astral
have
ships, huh?
put, yeah, they've put one of their little, like, brain worms into your head.
Great.
And you're spending the game trying to figure out, like, how do I get this out of me? And there's choices in the game that are affected by, you can listen to what the mind flayer's little larva is telling you
Uh-huh.
to do, or you can use, it has like additional abilities that boost like your charisma.
Mm-hmm.
But the more that you use it, the more you basically get overtaken by it.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, which seems like it has really good potential. Like, the game was super fun. I poured so many freaking hours into it, doing so many things, and there's like a cool part where there's like a hut with a hag that you can fight and all this. Like, it was super fun. It's not fully released yet, but I'm excited for when it does. It's
Mm-hmm.
super glitchy though, because it's a big game and it's got cutscenes where your character like completely noodles. um
There's... Sorry, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, but yeah, the premise is you're fighting against this mind flayer larva that's in your head and trying to figure out a way to get it out of you, but you can also succumb to its temptations and like it'll change the course of your story.
So people might notice that the way I'm doing the rim lighting here is a little strange and doesn't give a direction of light. And that's because what I'm trying to imagine here is that we are in a fairly well lit environment, and that the rim lighting is not because the light is coming necessarily from behind. It's because it's being sucked off of whatever the magical darkness is taking away. So it's a little bit weird.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I
CRPGs
love that.
CRPGs are such a cool genre. There's another one coming out soon called Rogue Trader that I'm excited for because I've been playing the Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader tabletop RPG lately. I actually just played last night, and Rogue Traders are it's a funny concept because the entire point of Warhammer is that nobody has any freedom, and Rogue Traders are the people who've been given freedom, and what do they do with it? And I think that's great. But we're talking about Mirage, so we should go back to D&D.
That's really cool though. I mean, I like getting to hear about the different, because D&D is the only
Yeah,
tabletop RPG I've played.
I think it's still like 85% of tabletop games that are played, which 5e is great. I love it. I do really love it. I think it is one of the best games to learn on, but everybody out there, other games are also good, I promise.
I think that's the thing, is it's so easy to pick up as a brand new player. And I
Yes.
will say, from the perspective of someone that D&D was my first tabletop and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh my god, these books are massive." I've never read the whole manual, the
Who
everything.
does?
Yeah, the to me it was like, "Oh, character creation is pretty straightforward."
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I like.
Yeah, I think
So,
in my opinion, I think the best you can get for tabletop design, and I think people have learned this since 5e, is you should make your game so that if you want to run it, you have to know a bit more. But if you want to build a character, you can just know the rules relevant to your character.
yeah. Yeah, it's the poor DM that does all of the work.
Yeah,
I have so much respect for DMs.
I mean, I've been genuinely paid to run 5e, and I still haven't read like every corner of the book because some of it just like maybe I have over time, but definitely I've never sat down and read it front to back. Just I don't know. I also a lot of games have switched to a system called bulk for carrying capacity. Anyone who bothers tracking pounds in 5e for carrying capacity hates themselves. I'm
Oh,
convinced. It's
yeah.
hell.
Oh yeah.
Who does
We
that to themselves?
I don't think there's a single game I've played where we've kept track of like carrying capacity weight. We only ever use it if it's like somebody wants to lift a rock and then we're
Yeah,
like,
you
"Okay,
figure
well
out
how
how
much
much
can you
rock can we
lift?"
lift.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. Give your players a bag of holding, and then you don't need to worry.
Exactly. Exactly. They're gonna carry everything they can find, regardless.
Yeah. Uh, there are games like Starfinder, Pathfinder 2, a few others. They didn't invent it, but I know they took it from other games. I just don't remember who did. Which is bulk, which represents how hard something is to carry for its weight and awkwardness, and like
Interesting.
it's so much easier because those games will use systems where like you can carry an amount of bulk equal to 5 plus your Constitution modifier, and that's simple. That's or so not Constitution strength. It's so like easy math.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like you're giving something a rating system as opposed to like, this weighs 5 pounds.
This much
This
strength. Refer to
weighs
the chart
2
for all your carrying
kilograms.
capacity loads and
Yeah.
oh
The amount of times I have definitely been carrying more than I probably should be able to.
yep.
Yeah. We don't talk. My DMs don't need to know. They don't need to know how many random. I mean, my cleric is carrying manacles because she's a haunted one, and that just
Fantastic.
comes in the kit that you're given. So I'm just lugging around metal chains and
Yeah.
fuck
you
if
know,
I know how much
no
that
way
weighs.
that's weighing you down.
No way that's weighing me down.
I had a character carry so many manacles because I was killing slavers, and I wanted to take a badge from each one I killed as a trophy, and
Oh, so I
they
took their
hide their
manacles.
symbol, and I thought they didn't wear a symbol because I'm like, well, they're very secretive. I guess I just because I couldn't find it, I thought they didn't have it. And the 18th slaver I killed, I found a patch, and I found where they were sewing them onto their clothes, and I was at that point carrying 17 pairs of manacles that were weighing me down, and I was just like,
Shit.
threw out all the manacles, restarted the trophy collection.
Just this little patch that I have, we're gonna multiply that by 17.
I've been like,
Jesus
every time they kill them, I
Christ.
like look around, like, do I find a place they store extra symbols that I can pick up the 17 I'm missing?
Does this guy happen to have like 15 or so patches hiding in his pockets that I could take?
So right now I have 17 badges, but I should have 34.
Oh my goodness.
I feel like
I just that could be a cool like design element for a character. Like if you brought a character in that was
Yeah.
like a trophy collector, they just had those things hanging off them almost.
yeah,
That'd be cool.
like I think carrying a bunch of manacles I think could be a cool trophy, but by God, like if you ever need to sneak and your DM doesn't punish you somehow for carrying around 17 pairs of manacles,
You're basically carrying worse than heavy armor at that
yeah,
point.
you're covered in loose hanging chains.
Absolutely. Oh my god.
I love the idea
I
of
d-
ignoring carrying capacity like a goddamn
so
Skyrim character.
Also, the other thing, excuse me,
No
is
problem.
if you're carrying around 17 pairs of manacles, now you look like the slaver
That's
to
sort of
anyone
what I was
who
running into
walks
too. Is people were like,
past. Why do you have that many manacles? What are you trying
doing
to
something
do?
wrong? No. You don't get it. I'm killing slavers.
I've killed, they're like, sure, Mr. 17 pairs of manacles, you're killing slavers.
That's why you're walking around with 17 pairs of slavery manacles,
Uh-huh.
like a normal person does.
Like a, oh yeah. You don't carry 17 pairs of manacles in your bag at all times?
Yeah, that's what normal people do actually. So if
It's
you
true.
could back off
That's me at the dog park every morning. 17 pairs of manacles in my purse.
walking around with your 17 pairs of manacles because you're normal.
Because I'm totally normal. That's what normal people do, okay?
A lot of those starting kits are so fun. Like I do love the idea that every soldier's
So
gotta have his game kit.
silly. Uh-huh.
Every soldier's got a game kit and an instrument. You find me the soldier who's not walking around with a deck of Uno and a harmonica.
They gotta do something when they're sitting in the jail,
Yeah.
you know? Watching people, guarding prisoners.
If any of you are a veteran out there and you come at me saying you didn't carry around a Magic the Gathering deck and a bassoon,
A whole bassoon.
yeah,
I
Or
want to make a
equivalent.
bard that just uses like a kazoo.
oh,
That's
my
what I
God.
want.
You know what's great about that is the skill ceiling for kazoo isn't that high.
No,
So if
anyone can do it.
If you bring a kazoo to the table, you are accurately replicating the in-game experience the other players are going through.
Just because I have the instrument doesn't mean I'm any good at it. Listen,
But
Bard never said they had to be able to actually play the instrument well.
somehow it doesn't. You can play a 2 charisma bard. Not 2. That's less than humans. 3. 3 is the least you can have. 3 charisma bard. You shouldn't.
But you can.
How does that person... Because the bardic inspiration, you have a number per day equal to your charisma modifier, but it's minimum 1. How does a 3 charisma bard give inspiration?
Ooh. That's a good question.
People are just thinking, if he's out here and he's giving it us all, I can too.
Yeah, exactly. You know what he's doing his best? That means I can as well. If he can succeed, so can I.
There's no way he can succeed and I can't. That's not the world we live in.
Exactly. Christ. Speaking from a more like legitimate point of view, I actually did really want to make a bard that used it would be a tiefling, of course, because I'm predictable. But they use like their own broken off horn, almost like an ocarina, like carved and shaped. Or like a flute sort of thing.
Okay,
I don't know how woodwind
really
instruments
sick,
work.
Though. I feel like horn is the easiest to justify. Ooh, that's big.
Whoa.
This effect, but there we go.
Oh, that's a cool brush.
I don't know if I like this glow though. Oh, but it's got its own built-in glow. What can we do with that? A little too bright.
What program is it that you use? Procreate
Studio.
Or Clip Studio? Oh, okay.
Now we're gonna play with this. I think this is a good base.
Yeah, that's such a cool brush.
Yeah, I downloaded a bunch of effects brushes because I don't know. It's fun to, instead of having to figure out like ice or lightning or whatever, just pull something out.
That can do it for you.
Oh,
yeah,
shit,
I mean that's.
Wait, ice brush though. Wait, ice brush. Hear me out. Problem is, it covers the figure if we go too thick. Might need to hand do this.
Might have to do it the hard way, boys.
Alright, we'll figure this out. We're getting there.
I mean, that's the nicest thing, in my opinion, about Clip Studio, is just all the cool effects brushes that you can get.
Yeah, there's just so much stuff made for it.
Yeah.
You know, another reason to consider Pathfinder 2, and this is a big one, they've changed tieflings. They're no longer a race. They're called versatile heritage. You basically pick an ancestry and a heritage for your character. So, like, there's normal elf, but then there's also, like, jungle elf, adaptable elf, ancient elf, all sorts of things to specify, like, what kind of elf you are. Yes, ancient is a heritage. Heritages are not always things that are heritages.
You're just old.
They're just something to modify your ancestry abilities you get. And Tiefling is what's called a versatile heritage, which means you can clip it on to anything else. So you're not playing Tieflings every time. You're playing orcs and elves and automaton, because there's no limit on what you can apply versatile heritages to.
I guess that makes sense, because the whole shtick with Tiefling was they're just half demon.
Yeah.
So in a sense, similar to like... Yeah, well, it's the same as like Genasi should be similar to that as well, as you're just half like
I think they're called Genie in PF2, but yeah, they are a thing as well that's a versatile heritage.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. That'd be fun. I mean, I always wanted like a Tiefling Genasi, and then I was like, how do I make that work?
That you actually can't do in PF2 because they're both versatile heritages.
Interesting. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. You can't be... I think that's just because a half genie, half demon is too powerful to be a player character.
Probably.
I feel like we're nearly there.
This is looking really cool.
Why, thank you.
I know we've been talking about characters, and I haven't really been. But this, like, pose and everything, this is fucking sick. This is so cool.
Right. Everyone brace yourself.
This is really rad. Ooh.
Oh, I think I'm seeing some of where an issue is coming from. God, I cannot wait until I get a new pen and I don't need to have this plugged in.
Strapped into the cord the entire time.
Yeah, it sucks because it sure does keep hitting the mic.
Thankfully, I mean, at least from Discord, I don't know how it is on, like, the actual stream, but it's
Hard to
not
say.
loud
Yeah.
when it hits the mic, so.
Discord's just so good at getting rid of noises that I do think that's probably just Discord doing its job.
Fair, yeah.
That's it. If this is going to be sucking out the light, we just need to eradicate some of the light that's facing it, other than the eyes, because I think the eyes should glow, because that feels like a tiefling thing to me.
That feels pretty normal, yeah.
Yeah. Why wouldn't they?
Why wouldn't they? We're in Magic Land. Why can't they glow?
Eyes should glow. That's important.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's thinking.
It's focus time.
It's focus time.
What are your favorite classes to play usually?
You did, before you go too far, you put a circle eraser mark on the top of the arc of that before you go too far, and you're like, what? Okay, I wasn't sure if you were gonna undo.
Yeah.
What was the question?
What are your favorite classes to play?
So, I actually really enjoy Cleric, because I like the amount of customization you can do with their abilities.
Yeah, different gods. Clerics are one of the only classes in the game that can be just good at everything.
They can just be good at everything. And I like, with the abilities that you can choose for them, how you can flavor them differently based on, like, their gods or things that are around them. So, like, my cleric that's in my Strahd campaign, her god is Pelor, so he's, like, god of the sun and warmth and all this stuff.
Yeah,
but
a lot of that in the Domains of Dread.
Yeah, yep. Oh, yeah. But she also follows, so this is where it got funny that my friend and I made, like, the same character. So she follows Pelor mostly, but then also, God, is it Shantea? Like, the goddess of nature, because she comes from a farm town. So both gods are fairly present. She actually follows both, but her main magic god is Pelor. So she has different abilities where her spiritual weapon is actually a harvest scythe with like thorns and roses growing all along the handle in the front of it. And then her I don't remember the ability name, but it's where you can summon, like, a radius of 30 feet, and you have these, like, creatures that go around hitting things for you.
Oh, Spiritual Guardians?
Yes, Spiritual Guardians. Her Spiritual Guardians are actually based off a, like, Midsummer festival. So it's a big maypole that gets erected in the middle of the field, and the figures around it that, like, do the damage are actually dancers.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, so, like, it all shimmers kind of gold and sunny, and they're dancers with, like, a ribbon around the maypole that dance around, and the whole thing is, if they come in contact with an enemy, the ribbon acts almost like a razor to cut into them. So it's this big, like, dancing around the maypole, but it does damage if there's, like, enemies in there.
I think that's so fun.
Yeah, I love, like, spellcasters and being able to just change how their spells appear.
Yeah, getting to flavor it. I feel like it's always nice when DMs are more cooperative with being willing to make those changes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I don't know if... I'm assuming Pathfinder probably has similarities, but yeah, like, being able to make changes to abilities or things like that based on, like, character backstory or, like, what works for players has always been a favorite of mine. Like, in the current campaign, we're running my character as a Dampier, so a part vampire.
Another versatile heritage in Pathfinder.
Yeah. Well, this one thankfully is a versatile heritage in
Oh, right, they did
D&D.
make that. Yeah, I
They
forgot.
did. They did. Um, so she's a Dampier Tiefling.
Oh my god.
I'm
Oh
sorry.
my
I
god.
love I
You're
love
a demon
horns.
vampire.
I love horns. So I'm a demon
You know,
vampire.
there's other stuff with horns, right? Like, you could be a minotaur.
But I want to be a cute girl.
You could be a dragon.
I want to be a cute girl. So the funny part, one of my first D&D campaigns ever, I wanted to be a dragonborn, but only because I asked the DM if I could flavor it so that she looked like the Owl Ra from Final Fantasy XIV. So she was just cute girl
Oh
with
my
like
god.
scales. And the
Yeah,
DM was like, "Yeah, sure."
that checks out. So
Listen,
basically a tiefling.
ba-
As
yeah,
tiefling, as, like,
as tiefling as I can get, but call it a dragonborn.
uh-huh,
Listen, my priorities in life: cute girls. That's it.
uh-huh.
That's
Look,
it.
if you're gonna have priorities, that's a good priority to have.
It's a pretty good priority to have. Um, but yeah, so my current character is a Dampier, and she's a dream eater. So she, like, a lot of her power comes from like consuming the dreams of other people, and we flavored her. Dampier get the bite ability,
Mm-hmm.
which they can use to like gain health from doing damage to people, but hers is flavored in a way that in RP scenario she can use it to like take people's dreams. And if she uses it in battle, instead of it being a bite, what she does is like her nails on her hand grow really long, and she digs them into the enemy's temple to basically like reach their mind.
Creepy.
Yeah, to pull out like their consciousness. Like it's pretty cool. But I like being able to customize things like that a lot.
Mm-hmm. I think PF2 is a little bit less forgiving with that, but there's still definitely room. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to customize it. Like, I have a friend who wanted to play a cyborg, and that's not really a thing that exists. But what he did was he played a human, and there's a human heritage that lets you start with an extra what's called general feat, and he took a general feat called adopted ancestry that lets you take ancestry feats from other ancestries, and he picked his
Oh,
adopted
okay.
ancestry as android so that he can take android feats,
Oh.
and that lets him have some android abilities, and that's how we made him a cyborg. So he's got a robot arm and nanites in his blood.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. There's a
That's
lot of
fun.
sci-fi shit in Pathfinder because there was they basically wanted to make a country that was classic Conan the Barbarian when it was like a sort of mix of sci-fi and sword and sandals fantasy. So it's just an entire country where a spaceship fell that's full of barbarians. So this channel, I'm going to try to make it not just advertising for Pathfinder 2. We're
But
not
it's
going to
mostly advertising for Pathfinder
we're
2.
not going to always succeed.
You need like a counter on the channel, like an
Oh my
interactive
God.
counter that's like days since Pathfinder 2, or like minutes since Pathfinder 2 was
I
last mentioned.
I do not have the self-discipline to actually hold myself accountable to that counter. The second the channel's big enough that I can have mods, that's what we're gonna
Yeah.
need to do.
Yeah, minutes since Pathfinder 2 last mentioned.
Yeah, hold me accountable. Yeah, I think we're nearly done here.
I adore the like shattered glass, how it's different parts of the figure reflected. That is super cool.
I'm gonna change this one a bit. Thank you. I'm trying to... Obviously, we're giving ourselves a hard time limit with these, so I can't make it quite as detailed as I might like to, but trying to make it nice.
I gotta go conveniently play D&D in 30 minutes.
Ooh, that's the... Is that Strahd?
No, actually, this is our villains campaign, which we
Okay.
haven't been able to play Strahd for a while, which is unfortunate because we are recording our villains sessions
Oh.
to upload and release.
And where
So
can
we're
everybody
trying to
find
get. It is going to be. We have a Twitter account which is at Song of Equinox, which we actually just recently rebranded. We used to be Chronicles of Xandoth,
that? Okay.
but then there was one day I was like, oh, I need to follow the account on my regular YouTube, and I tried to find it, and there was another D&D group called Chronicles of Xandor, and
What?
we were like, that's too similar. We need to change.
Oh no.
So we had a whole conversation one day, and we like all got together and we're talking, and we came up with Song of Equinox, which we thought was
Okay.
super cool. So
Yeah.
we're on Twitter at Song of Equinox, and then we also have a Patreon, which I think has now been changed to Song of Equinox as well. And we do have a
Hopefully.
YouTube right now. The only thing up is our session 0,
Nice.
where it's just us shooting the shit and rolling stats. And we're hoping to start uploading the actual campaign sessions in the new year. Our Patreon does have the campaign episodes uploaded, but while we've been rebranding and everything, we've been waiting until we kind of have a backlog of episodes before going live.
Yeah, I think that's smart. I mean, hey, we're doing the same thing here. By the time you guys have seen this, I'll have recorded 6 or 7 of these, which means by the time this is going up, you guys for your villains game might have a little bit more content for people to find.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've got, I think, 6 or 7 episodes recorded. Our Patreon, I think, is up to episode 5.
Nice.
And then we're probably gonna start posting them live on YouTube in the new year. That way, I mean, like I said, it's nearly freaking impossible to get 6 adults together once a week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we kept having people, like one of our players is going away for a month-long trip over like middle of November to mid-December, so we were like, we'll just wait until the new year before getting gung-ho into things.
It's probably a fair choice. It's also, and that's why this is going to be going up then, a good time to launch a channel because ad revenue is a lot lower, so the people who actually make money from it stop uploading, so people are more thirsty for content.
Exactly. Perfect. It's marketing. Not intended, but it's perfect.
I think we're almost done here.
Yeah, this is looking freaking really cool.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah. Could make a lot of this stuff more polished, but the entire goal is going to be getting as much done as I can as quickly as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Now this one... this would be easier if I could get my dog to look at me. Do I not remember what dogs look like? I have not practiced dogs as much as people.
Dogs are hard.
Oh
I
my
cannot
God.
draw dogs.
I've done it before, but you know what? You know what? No dog this time.
No dog. No dog this time. I'll have to send you the one that my friend drew that was like super cute.
With reference, I'm sure we could have a dog, but just not this time.
No dog this time, ladies and gentlemen. Next time, however.
Next time, dog.
Possibly. Next time, dog.
And I'd love to have you back on to talk about more things. Another form of
Hell yeah.
stream we're going to be doing is just doing fan art while talking about stuff we like, very freeform. Sort of
Oh,
like
hell
this,
yeah.
but I'm not even going to try to bring it back to a topic.
It's just gonna go around. I when I get talking, I can go through so many different conversations. The fact that we kept this on D&D, impressive.
You know, I'm going to hold that as a testament to my incredible interview skills.
Pretty darn good.
What do we think?
I think that looks freaking awesome.
Hell
I love
yeah.
the fade out on the edges too, like it's all coming from like the darkness in the center. Ah, that is so cool.
Not bad for just, I think it was about just under an hour and a half, even less than I was aiming for, so.
Yeah, no, that's freaking phenomenal.
Thank you, and thanks for being here. Love to have you back. We'll talk about some more stuff. I'll let you get to your villains game, get that recorded so there's some content for people to find.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you again for this. This is amazing.
Thanks for coming on. I'm so excited to be doing this. Hopefully it goes well, and I'm going to be seeing a lot more of all you guys out there. All right, this one's over.